back. And if you're joining us right now, we are just getting our first conversation for the morning started. And as we mentioned before the break, we are talking all about the launch of the energy policy, which is coming very soon. And joining us joining us this morning, we have representatives from the Ministry of Energy. We have Mr. Ryan Cobb, who is the director of the Energy Unit, along with Dion Kelly, who is an energy officer. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And thank you so much for joining us. We're interested to learn about the energy policy, which is launching this week, Thursday. Why don't we start by talking a little bit about the background of the policy and what exactly it aims to do?
Sure. The energy policy is the government's strategic pathway, the policy on how we treat energy all the way up to the year 2030. It encompasses a strategy of how do we deal with electricity, with fuels, with gaseous fuels. Specifically within this policy, we encompass what are the targets that we want to reach, specifically in renewable energy and the electricity market. For example, we have international commitments of reaching 75% of renewable energy by the year 2030. And we could achieve this by many outcomes, such as installation of more solar, hydro, biomass, wind.
So we did have you guys on the show, I believe it was about a week ago. Yeah,
it was the 1st of November.
Yes, you guys were here this month, and we were talking to you, Dion, and the minister about works that is being done through the ministry. So before we jump into the energy policy a bit more, let's get a bit of an even bigger backdrop to what exactly the ministry is doing as it relates to energy and cleaner energy as well.
Okay, sure. As you guys may recall, when the minister and myself were here on November 1st, we were actually launching Energy Month because we are within Energy Month. And so I think one of the most noble projects that we have is the energy access that we were talking about that time when we were here. And so we have seen whereby it really hits home in terms, literal of hitting home, in terms of how we go about introducing renewable energy within these areas that probably would not be accessing electricity for probably the next 10 to 15 years. And we see that as a very, very important project that we have in terms that we are really changing people's lives. We can see whereby our first project that was inaugurated in 2017 in the village of La Gracia, whereby there were just 2 shops, and these shops were really running basically their refrigerator and a butane system, and then their other items on a generator. And some of them even had, you'd call, rudimentary systems whereby they would actually buy solar PV systems, but they would buy car batteries. And of course, we know that's very ineffective in terms of the long term or the longevity of those systems, and even more so safety. So when we come into a village and we present the idea of electrifying this village through renewable energy, particularly solar, and we have backup in terms of diesel. For example, we know that we have about 27 villages that don't have electricity currently. And we're seeing that gradually as we move along, we're making gains within these areas, and we're seeing how people's lives are changing slowly.
Before I ask my primary question, I want to just have our viewers know, what is the primary reason why these 27 villages do not have electricity?
Sure. The primary reason is their remote location. Many of these villages are all the way inland, many times, many miles away from the national grid. So it's really expensive to extend the national grid up to those villages. So what we have done is that we've started the Rural Electrification Project, which now develops microgrids within these communities. So you have a central generating unit, which is more than likely solar, with battery backup and another type of backup generation in case of prolonged days without rain. Interestingly, in the village that that Dion spoke about, La Gracia, we actually had a situation where the generator was not running enough because the solar was sufficient, because there was sufficient sunlight to power the entire system and the village.
Perfect. Now, how does these projects tie into what the energy policy aims to achieve?
Okay.
Yeah, one of the major objectives of the energy policy is to achieve universal access. Universal access basically requires us to have a minimum of about 16 hours of access to electricity or energy services, better said, to individual households within the country. Now, whenever people think about energy access, the first thing that comes to their mind is electricity. But it's so much more than that. It's access to sustainable energy, such as clean cooking fuels. As you may know, a lot of these villages cook with firewood. While the food may be tastier, there are certain health dangers that come with it, both in respiratory and fire dangers. So trying to transition some of that cooking to, say, LPG, or even same using the firewood, but in a much more efficient manner in what they call eco stoves.
I was going to say, you can't tell fire heart loving people to not have fire hot rice and beans.
Exactly. So it's trying to change that precedence. That's what the energy policy is looking at. It's a holistic view.
And I would imagine that gathering the data for to create the policy would be a very comprehensive and extensive process. Can you talk about how the ministry has gone into the communities and, let's say, assessed the different energy needs across the country?
Sure. Whenever we talk about data gathering, like for example for this energy policy, it is not a one-time data gathering. It's actually something that we do year-round every year. A part of it is our annual energy report, which looks at the statistics of electricity, fuels, gaseous fuels. But when it comes to now looking at electrification, we actually go into the communities. We engage with these communities. We hold community meetings so as to look at what are the needs of the communities, to try to find what's the best location for these systems.
You know, when we're talking solar or any other form of cleaner energy, renewable energy, the big question I imagine a lot of our viewers are asking is, how will this affect my electricity rate? Will I be paying less to burn this amount of energy? What's the conversation about that?
The conversation about that is that the way we are doing it is right now is that the government goes ahead and tries to look for grant funding or concessional financing so as to build these generating units, which are the solar panels, basically. And we partner with Belize Electricity Limited, where they go ahead and they build the transmission and distribution. So what that means is that there is not that much of capital expenditure from the company. So that means minimal, if any, type of impact on the rates itself. One thing that we need to understand as well is that the impact within these communities also goes towards a holistic economic development within the country. So when these communities do better, actually the country as a whole does better as well.
And the long-term strategy as well is that because we're working along with the Belize Electricity Limited, the grid is built in a way that in the future, probably in the next 5 or 10 years, when the national grid arrives, it can easily be connected to the system and give what you'd call that technical support in terms of voltage and frequency, and would help us to also reduce losses in terms of the lines.
You know, one of the conversations we were also having with this ministry and as well as the minister, Michelle Shabat, is the way that we plan to reduce our reliance on petroleum. What's your feedback on that?
The feedback on that is that, yes, we are trying to reduce our dependence on petroleum, but quite interestingly enough, it's not within the electricity sector, it's within the transportation sector. Within the electricity sector, we are over 50% from renewable energy in electricity, where the majority of the remainder is a direct import from Mexico. So we don't have that much in-house generation from fossil fuels. But within the transport sector, you know that to fill up your vehicle, you use either gasoline or diesel. And that's where a lot of the greenhouse gas emissions comes from within the energy sector itself.
But the partnership comes in where we are also encouraging persons to think about maybe electric vehicles instead. We were also having that conversation, Dion. So that's where basically my question comes from. Is this something that you also plan to push a bigger campaign for electric vehicles to reduce our reliance on petroleum?
Yes, most effectively. We are currently looking at a twofold approach to electric mobility. One within the private sector and one within the public sector.
That's right.
Within the public sector, we are actually deploying a pilot program right now in conjunction with the European Union and the United Development Program, UNDP, where we'll be introducing buses in two modes. One within transportation within the city itself, and transportation between districts and towns.
Yeah.
I want to go back to something that you said earlier, talking about the renewable energy sources that we currently, that generate a lot of our energy. Can you give us a little bit more details on what those energy sources are, and if the policy intends to, let's say, maybe expand or continue development along those lines?
Sure. Within the renewable energy generations that we have in the country, one of the most important is our hydro facilities. Our hydro facilities provide approximately up to 40% of all our electricity needs, and is one of what we call our base load generators. That we have basically year-round. In addition to that, we have our biomass facilities, which are basically our sugarcane production facilities where we generate electricity as well. We have in the west, we have Santander, and up north, we have Belcogen and BSI. These are important industries because apart from generating electricity for us, they support the agricultural industries, which is a key economic pillar within our country. Now, the remaining portion of the electricity that we use is approximately 5% to 10% does come from fossil fuel generation, such as key coker and backup generation, but the majority of the rest comes from Mexico. Now, what the policy is looking at is trying to increase energy security. Now, what we're trying to do is reduce the amount of electricity that we import from Mexico, but we're trying to do it in a manner where we balance security and economics. We don't want to reduce Mexico, but increase rates.
Yeah.
So it's a very delicate balance that we need to look at, so as to increase security and maintain rates, or preferably lower rates.
Yeah.
And that's what we're looking at when we're talking about the new generation that we want to come online, specifically that of solar.
Yeah, because I imagine, I mean, it will be a challenge enough to encourage consumers of electricity to buy into change.
Yeah.
Now, to buy into change where they have to pay more, that might also be an even more difficult task. So is there a particular plan to push this campaign to consumers to understand the importance of doing this in the first place, whatever it will come with, if it's higher costs or if it's going to be lower? What is that campaign going to look like?
It's going to be a twofold campaign. One within the public utilities sector where we'll be looking at utility scale generation. We are going to be having communication campaigns in conjunction with the Ministry of Economic Development, where we're looking at introducing 60 megawatts of solar on the national grid. But on the other hand, we're also starting now to encourage rooftop solar in distributed generation, where households will now be able to participate within this market, where they'll be able to install solar on the roof, use whatever electricity they need to use during the day, and if they have excess, they'll be able to sell that back into the grid
This
now.
was what we were talking about when you came the first time, Dion. So I'll definitely bring that point in then for persons that would like to independently purchase their own solar panels and make that investment for themselves. Will there be a difference in how that will look as it relates to persons that would be buying it from the Belize Electricity Limited and the government by extension, or doing it on their own? What would be the difference and maybe the requirements to do so?
I know going forward, because what we have seen is that the regulation has been behind in terms of getting with the program, in terms of people, household or commercial, connecting solar PV systems to the grid. And so we note that that has caused certain issues. Like, for example, we have had people call into our office explaining that they install solar in their household, but their light bill is higher.
Yeah.
And so we understand that the regulation needs to be in place. And so I'm working along with the Public Utilities Commission. Going forward, everyone that has solar, whether it's a residential or commercial entity, they will need to register with the PUC. And so then we can actually advise them in terms of how to go forward. And
what would cause their electricity to be higher, if I could ask? Would you know?
okay, sure. So what happens is that the electric meters that are currently within the country is what we'd call a unidirectional meter. It only goes in one direction. So when you have your solar PV system and you are connected to the grid, when you use power from the grid, it spins in one direction.
Okay.
When you generate an excess, so you don't use it within your household, it spins in that same direction. So it actually adds to your electricity bill.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Yes, it
so
does.
would that be something through the Belize Electricity Limited that we'd be able to correct? How do you go about fixing that issue?
Yes. So that is part of the registration process.
Okay.
Within the registration process, you'll be able to get technical advice on the type of system you'll be installing. For example, another reason why sometimes electricity bills might be higher is because the load of that particular household or commercial entity was profiled wrong, such as most of their consumption might be at night, not actually during the day. Panels don't work at night. But also what this means is that if you register, you'll be able to change your meter. We are moving towards what's called smart metering now and bi-directional metering. So that if you do feed into the grid, you'll be able to register that. And at the end of the month, will be able to be discounted towards your monthly bill as well.
You know, one of the questions that I wanted to ask Dion the last time you guys were here had to do with where Belize stands compared to our neighbors. Or, for instance, we oftentimes see our ministers or representatives from these ministries attend different conferences, COP for instance, and we're able to see, or we're able to compare where Belize stands as it relates to other countries. Looking at Central America, how would you compare Belize's position as it relates to renewable energy through this energy policy to our neighbors in Central America? Okay,
sure, and I'm glad you brought up that point because Belize, we're a blessed nation in terms of where we're situated and how we go about our lives. Particularly within Central America, you could say that in terms of renewable energy, we are behind them, but we're in a good position still because we have not really tapped into, you'd say, the majority of the possibility that we have in terms of solar. And so when we look at our position within Central America, yes, we're behind, but I can assure you within the next 2 to 3 years, when our different solar PV systems come on stream, we should be on par or even better off than our Central American counterparts. What we do have to pay attention to, and as Ryan was saying, that we see that Costa Rica, who is pretty much leading, they're almost, or you could say 100% renewable energy within their grid. The hydro, they actually have a problem with the hydro. I believe this year they had a drought and they had to fire up their fossil fuel generation plants just to be able to serve their country. So it's very important that as we move along with this transition within the sector, we understand that there's no silver bullets and we just have to keep on working and ensure that we are very compliant with what we have and we understand how to move forward.
And just to add to that, when Dion says that we're behind in the amount of electricity produced from renewable energy.
Right.
But when you look at percentage-wise, we're only second to Costa Rica.
Okay.
When it now, for the viewers, you might say, well, sure, that's fine, but rates. How are we with rates? Well, within the Caribbean, we're the second lowest rates within the Caribbean.
That's what I was going to ask.
Only second to Trinidad and Tobago,
which
produce from gas.
Yeah.
Within Central America, we are at the median level, being that there are within Central America, there are countries where there's not one national tariff. Different areas have different tariffs. and we are cheaper than many places within Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador as well. So that's why I'm saying we're on the median scale when it comes to electricity rates as well.
And that's great because we have a very small population as well. And that's one of the reasons why I asked that, because I know that Belize falls in line with SICA being a part of Central America. But my second question would have been CARICOM. How do we compare with CARICOM? So I'm glad that you were able to give insight on the Caribbean side as well. Let's take the conversation into the launch of the policy. As Gavin said, it would be this Thursday. What follows next? We've been talking a bit about the timeline, but I'd like for you to give us, as clear as possible, what happens after this launch.
Sure. To bring it back to the launch will be happening this Thursday. We're going to be having the Energy Expo at the Roaring River Golf Course this November 16th. What happens after the launch of this policy is that we're moving into enaction, or I shouldn't say we're moving to enaction because we're already enacting the policy right now. We're looking at our rural electrification program. We're looking at our e-mobility program. We're looking at increasing our renewables through utility grade investments, both within the public sector and the investment sector. One area that will be bolstered now by this policy will be the energy efficiency portion now. Looking at how to improve energy efficiency through standards and labels, through investments in public buildings so that the public purse will be less spent on utilities now as well.
Okay.
Yes. One of the questions that I had was, you had brought up in the example of Costa Rica dealing with droughts. And of course, just dealing with our weather this morning, as we were talking about this morning, I was wondering if the policy also addresses, let's say, sustainability and renewable energy in the context of, let's say, climate change, natural disasters, so that, and in the context of energy security, which is one of the terms that you used earlier. Does the policy also take that into consideration?
Yes. The policy specifically talks about energy resilience and resilience to climate change. So investments in solar is just one portion of it. Another portion is investments in regional integration and transmission and distribution. Within regional integration, we are looking at how to integrate with that SICA portion that we have, what's called the SEPAC line, but also to reinforce our connection with Mexico. Although we want to reduce the amount we import from them, there is the opportunity to export electricity from them. Now, another portion is that we're looking at installing about approximately 40 megawatts of battery storage within the country. That will then allow us to say on days where we have little sunshine, to then use those batteries so as to power our national grid. It also allows us to react to any type of climatic condition. Say we have a hurricane coming through, we'll be able to deploy those batteries very rapidly as well.
You know what I was thinking, and I know that this might be a question that you might not often get asked, but is there any possible challenges that you guys at the ministry are looking to maybe take on through this energy policy and launching renewable energy here in Belize?
Yes, that would be one of capacity constraints. All of these technologies are very new to the country. And to be quite sincere, they're new to the region. When I just spoke about battery on the grid, if we are to install 40 megawatts of battery within the grid, say within the next 2 years, we'll actually be the first country within Central America to deploy utility scale battery deployment on the grid.
Okay.
So we're looking at building our capacities in order to deploy this. We're also looking at how to better plan our system expansions to see what technologies are best deployed in the renewable energy and sustainable energy fields as well.
I mean, I don't know if this would tie in exactly with what you are saying, but is there any hazards that we should be concerned about when it comes to renewable energy like solar energy? And I ask this because just in our newscast last night and as well as last week, I believe, we reported on a fire here in Belize City. And we got an interview from Kenneth Mortis, the station supervisor at the fire station, and he was able to share with us that it was the result of a solar panel, I believe, and the battery or something like that not being properly ventilated. Is that something that we should be also considering when it comes to things that could be a challenge with renewable energy or solar energy, for instance?
Those are things that we take into consideration. So one of the advantages of now bringing in regulations and putting these types of technologies within our policy is that we're starting to develop standards for them. And so that means that panels, inverters, batteries, storage will now have a set way of installation, inspection, and so this will minimize any type of hazards that come with the deployment of this technology. But also it comes with planning and training for our emergency response personnel as well. We'll be talking a little bit more about e-mobility later on. Our e-mobility program also brings in training for emergency personnel on how to respond in case of any type of emergency when dealing with these technologies.
Excellent. Gentlemen, this conversation is great. We will take a very short break, and when we come back, we'll continue the conversation on energy policy and renewable energy here in Belize. Stay with us.
Technology is ubiquitous, and it's transforming how, when, and where we work. Fulltech Systems is placing award-winning devices in the hands of information workers, allowing them to work without compromise in a world without wires, to innovate, create, and to maximize productivity anytime, anywhere. Satisfying the needs of the desk-centric remote and field worker and every other worker in between. We are providing the industry's best devices to businesses going through the process of digital transformation. Partner with us today to provide the solutions that will allow your employees to work effectively and efficiently to enhance your customers' experience. Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price but stay for the service.
Ho, ho, ho! This Christmas, win a chance to spin the wheel and let luck choose your prize. Get one coupon for every purchase of $25 Belize in Uno fuels or per quart of Uno lubricants. Receive double coupons when you buy a gallon of Uno lubricants. Get into the spirit. It's Christmas time. In collaboration with Quartz. Uno, a brand committed with the future.
Who's my last little bit of paint?
Paint? How can that be a problem? We got you.
You have the exact color?
Definitely.
Attention DIY enthusiasts and professional builders. It's Builders Hardware's Mega Sale, starting October 16th and running through to December 30th. During our Mega Sale, you can enjoy up to 30% off items in our store. Looking to freshen up your home? Then enjoy 20% off on all paints, wood stains, and accessories. But that's not all. You get a whopping 25% discount on all other items in our store and a massive 30% off selected items. At Builders Hardware, we believe our customers are awesome. And that's why we're committed to providing top-notch service and the highest quality products. So whether you're a seasoned pro or a DIY beginner, we are waiting for you. Builders Hardware Mega Sale from October 16th until the end of the year.
I'm connected. Yo.
I'm connected.
We're connected.
Create the perfect broadband bundle that fits your style with Smart Connect. With the Junior Bundle, get 50% off your national calls and up to 6 gigabytes of data at no extra cost. Get postpaid added for an additional cost of only $25 with the Prime Bundle. Stay connected with unlimited smart-to-smart calls plus 6,300 megabytes of data and free international minutes. For the family, pay $28.13 more and get the Binge Watchers bundle with Netflix. This bundle gives you 4 profiles with unlimited streaming on multiple devices. Visit a showroom near you to sign up and personalize your own bundle combination with Smart Connect. Smart, bringing people together.
Welcome back, and thank you for sticking with us. Just before the break, we were talking about the Ministry of Public Utilities, Logistics and E-Governance launching their energy policy. So the conversation was surrounding what Belize intends to do with this new policy that will be launched on Thursday. Of course, this also surrounds Energy Month that we have been talking about as well this month. So perhaps we can take the conversation into what we can expect as it relates to activities or events taking place this month through the Ministry for Energy Month. Dion, let's get your take on that.
Okay, sure. So as you may know that when we talk about Energy Month, there's 2 main aspects. The first aspect is awareness, whereby we as the ministry in charge of energy, we work throughout the year doing different activities. But when Energy Month comes, we actually stop and take stock of exactly what we have done. And so that's very important to share with the public what we're doing. And when I say we, not just the ministry, but the energy sector.
Yeah.
And that brings in the other important part of what Energy Month is, that we bring stakeholders together, because that's when you really have that robust conversation. And that leads into one of the important portions of what we'll be doing within the Energy Fair, which will be held the 16th of November right here at the Roaring River Golf Course in Roaring Creek. We'll be having 3 panels. We believe these 3 panels are very important as we go about Energy Month and launching the energy policy. Our first panel will be a discussion around the energy policy in general. We believe bringing different stakeholders to give their point of view of how they see the energy policy and how it will affect their entity and how their entity will also provide service to the public. And that's very important in terms of the energy policy. So we'll having that discussion.
Are you able to identify who are the stakeholders that will be a part of the forum?
Yes, definitely our ministry will be a part of the forum, BL and PUC.
Okay.
And we're also bringing along the IDB.
Okay.
Because having that international stakeholder to have that discussion with the different local stakeholders is very important.
What is the importance of having the International Development Bank a part of this forum?
Definitely, as a ministry, we understand how important it is to have key stakeholders working along with you, and the support that we have gotten from our multilateral counterparts is very important. And so we have seen over the years that the IDB has supported us in different initiatives. I think one of the biggest initiatives was through the initial policy or the creation of the strategy and action plan.
You know, one of the other things that we identified is that this ministry is a small team with a broad mandate. We're talking energy on its own, very big area to cover. What is the importance of including stakeholders in your work being done through this ministry then, knowing that the team is small?
Definitely. What we have seen that when it comes to getting your work done, you ideally would want to have a concept. And when you have that concept, then you start putting in place that timeline. And as you look at that timeline from the short to medium to long term over your project timeline, you see that you need different stakeholders. But you don't want to bring those stakeholders in when you need them.
Yeah.
You want to bring them in from the initial point of your project.
Have them be included in
and
the
so
work
they can
that you're
feel
doing.
a part of it, and then they actually bring another perspective to your concept.
Yeah.
And so having stakeholders on board from the start of any initiative is very important for the success of your project.
Yeah.
Yeah, and speaking of stakeholders, I would imagine that when you are rolling out projects that will affect, let's say, for example, with the rural
Electrification.
electrification. Getting community input feedback to assess their needs is also a huge part of the process, I guess, that the ministry would have engaged in. Can you talk about what that was like as well?
Yes, so what we did basically is that we understood for the success of energy access, you need to create a program and not a project. Because you can't go village by village by village and then trying to figure out how it would work. So initially when we started with La Gracia, and that was like a pilot project, whereby we learned a lot of lessons, do's and don'ts. And so as we move from the pilot project and move into the program, we saw that stakeholder conversation is very important. And not just at the initial part of the project, but throughout. Because when persons from these areas feel a part of the project, it's more easier to move along the process. Because sometimes there are some difficulty in terms of delay and timeline and different issues with projects. But when you have the village particularly aligned with the project and understand that there will be some bumps in the road, it's just a smoother process, and smoother process always lead to a more efficient project.
So we spoke about the projects that the ministry has been doing prior to the energy policy. We spoke about the energy policy and what it intends to achieve, the importance of it, how we compare to our international and regional neighbors. We spoke about Energy Month and some of the activities, and I do want to go back to that. And we also spoke about the challenges that we may encounter, why there is need for regulation, how our viewers or how persons that are interested can reach out to the ministry when that time comes to be a part of this project, to be a part of this change to renewable energy. I want to take things right back to Energy Month because it's important that we keep the conversation flowing because we are in the month of November. So we know that there will be a forum that will include other stakeholders, including the IDB, the PUC, and Belize Electricity Limited. Let's talk about other mini projects that will also be a part of Energy Month. I understand that there will also be an expo, an art competition. Let's get that.
Yes. So the expo, as we said, is going to be taking at the Roaring River Golf Course. We're going to have over 25 booths. I think right now we're up to like 27 booths right now, which are going to be involving various stakeholders within the energy sector, the productivity sector, such as agriculture, hydro, and the financial sector as well, such as the banks and the DFC, and other multilateral agencies. At the different booths, we'll be giving, of course, information, but there'll also be giving away a lot of giveaways. For example, at our booth, we'll be conducting a bulb exchange program for energy efficiency. So if you come, you will be able to walk away with LED bulbs. Also, there'll be on display new technologies. So you have a lot of solar companies displaying their technologies, their solar panels, their inverters, their batteries. You have car companies such as Caribbean Motors will be displaying their new electric vehicles. But also will be announcing the winners of our digital art competition. This year we have 3 different categories. We have primary school level, which have prizes that range from $300, $200, and $100, to high school, where the prizes are $700, $500, and $300, and the general public, which is an even greater prize of $1,000, $700, and $500.
Wonderful. Well, gentlemen, I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation this morning. I'll throw the mic back to you guys and ask if you have any last words, anything else that we did not cover that you'd like to mention.
Sure. Just to clarify points that when we're talking about, when this ministry talks about energy, we're talking much more than just electricity. We're talking about all forms of energy and how we're trying to do it in a sustainable manner, one that not just improves the country climate-wise, but also benefits the country economically. And maintaining that balance is what we're really looking at.
Yeah. And Dion, as the man on the ground, what's your last words?
I just want to thank the public for all the support they have given to the ministry. I mean, the ministry is just, this year we're celebrating, I think, our 10th year as a ministry. And so we know that the benefits that we have gotten in terms of the success that we have received is only because of our stakeholders. So we really want to stop in November and take stock of what we have done throughout the year. And I think it's one of the best times to tell our stakeholders thank you, and we just ask for their continued support as we move along with this energy transition for our country.
Excellent. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Happy Energy Month. Yes. And we look forward to seeing highlights of all the activities and the events that will be taking place this month. That will be rolled out on Thursday as we launch our energy policy as well. So congratulations on all the wonderful work that your team has been doing through the ministry, and we look forward to all the other things that will take place as well. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Alrighty, we are going to take a bit of a flashback. We're going to jump into a feature with one of our hosts, April Martinez, as she visited Banana Bank. Don't go away.